ICSE में also fixed theory. So this is science theory. Science सबसे पहले also fixed theory. Normal, पर नाम आनी इन्होंने बहुत दिया क्या वही अरे हाँ ये नहीं करना 6.5 चल रहा है आप 6.3 और 4 का नहीं करना तो 5 नहीं करना 6.2 किया है 6.2 नहीं करना ये 6.2 था 6.2 में 13 हम थे किया तुमने नहीं वो नहीं करना 6.4 और 6.5 नहीं करना 6.4 6.5 6.4 6.3 करना और इस पॉइंट पर है ना सर डिस्प्लेटेड हमको वही करना चाहते हैं आगे के बता रहा है चाहते हैं ये 6.3 और 6.3 था ना वो दो बार करना था उसमें तो 3 4 6 होते हैं हां वो दो बार करना पर ऊपर के बस आप ये आज ये रेसिपी है ना अरे आपको दे जरा वो तो देखना हां ये I think this was multiplication का सब किया और ये तो अभी अगर सही तो ये कैसे किया मैंने 6.2 3 4 सब किया लेकिन एक ही बार किया दोबारा नहीं बोल रहा हूं मैं 6.2 किया भाई आज के अगर इसमें प्रॉब्लम आ गया अरे 6.3 को मुझे नहीं कर 6.2 से कर नहीं किया था मैंने किया हमने 6.1 किया था अरे नहीं किया था मैंने दो दिन से आपने इससे देखा अब ये सुनना मुझे पता है ये तुम बोलो बार करके लो तुमने देखेगा नहीं अरे 6.3 तो ना 5 किया ना बस हां डिपेंड है मैंने अरे ऐसे भी करंट करना अरे वो तब खरीदना पड़ेगा इधर से खरीदना होगा और वो बाहर में सब तब तो खरीद हमको आता है कंट्रीब्यूशन कितना खर्च होगा 2000 वो पैसा सारा वो टाइमिंग पे जाएगा अरे जो इलेक्ट्रिसिटी जनरेट करेगा अभी नहीं करेगा। अरे वो जो भाई राहुल इसको मिला रहा उतने होने लग गए कि अच्छा मार गया अच्छा मेरे को 60 मिला रहा उस पर मेरे को भी उससे अब भाई उसमें बात नहीं की हाँ जो कितना बड़े होता है ना वो फिजिक्स बायो और ये बायो में लेकिन एब्स्ट्रैक्ट है पहले बार देखना हमको क्यों इसको तो मस्ती होता है लेकिन देखो कुछ नहीं होती जो बोलेगी वो बस पवार हम किया इसको जी बोलिए प्लीज आज इसको के लिए बस एसीपीएस में मार्केट में होता है ना बायो सस्ता है तो भाई उसको करता हुआ ना तो अभी जाता नहीं लगेगा वो ग्रुप के भी चलेंगे नहीं होता है इसमें कुछ चलेगा मैथ्स में स्टैटिस्टिक्स अरे उसको पता नहीं कुछ एक्स्ट्रा चलेंगे कब आज नहीं है एक्चुअली देखना एक्स्ट्रा निकाला उसके बाद केमिस्ट्री निकाला उसके बाद में एसीपीएस निकाला तो 2 दिन पहले बायो नहीं था केमिस्ट्री नहीं यार एसीपीएस है बिल्कुल ठीक है एसीपीएस है वो उसके टाइम टेबल में लिखी इतने बना देंगे कैलकुलेशन मेरा हम लोग कितना सेमेस्टर है तो एग्जाम कैसे है मैं अपने स्कूल के 3 सेमेस्टर है लास्ट साइड में भी 2 सेमेस्टर यूनिट टेस्ट है कोई यूनिट टेस्ट कितने मार्क्स आता है 40 हम लोग अरे 9 यूनिट टेस्ट नहीं मालूम है हमारा यूनिट टेस्ट में था और यूनिट को हिंदी पास बस और दो महीने में टेस्ट आ रहा है वापस देख इतना ज्यादा क्या आ गया ओ पॉइंट 3 पॉइंट 4 हां 2 बार किया हां 2 बार किया मैं आपने पॉइंट 3 2 बार लगा सर बोल दे सर ने छोटी मेरे छोटी सर बाहर बैठे हुए भाई कुछ नहीं पता नहीं अच्छा सर अलग-अलग अभिवादन नहीं आ रहा है हाँ मेरा अरे खड़े हो जाते हैं आधे वालों क्या समझेंगे वो मीटिंग पर नहीं काय नहीं Yes, sir. लोगैरिथम क्या लगा है मेरे को भाई
What was the last chapter we were studying? What was the last chapter we were studying? Seeds, no, that was seeds, I think, because before your exam we had finished that chapter, no? Seeds. How was the exam for you?
Excellent.
Marks?
Good.
Excellent to good with you always?
I think I have one marks. 53.
164.
54 मेरा वो 54.
मैम 64 मैम मुझे बोला आपको दिखाओ फिर अभी मिला नहीं है आई नेक्स्ट
अभी मिला नहीं है तो आपको
जब अरे भाई हां तो दिखाओ
कुछ तो 56 ये बायोलॉजी वाला अच्छा है बायो अच्छा नहीं
Where did you lose marks? Which topics?
we are near quiz
ऑलरेडी पढ़ा ना उन्होंने कुछ भी पूछा ना मेरी क्लास पूरा पढ़ के मुझे और पूछा क्वेश्चन आया
हां
मतलब ये वो एक ही डाल है तो
वो क्या था वो डायरेक्ट ओ
मेरे पास भी नहीं अरे कहाँ है
Wait, no chaos in the class. You are new. When did you join? No noise now. When did you join? Last month.
पिछले में
Before holidays, before Diwali holidays. Now, which chapters to complete? Tell me, which are the chapters?
Respiration and plant.
हाँ respiration
Okay, respiration and plants. And okay, now first of all, you tell me when is your next exam?
17th February. 17th February.
Before that, St. Mary's also has. You are with school?
very
South Boston. When is your exam? January. Acha. So yours is January. You are.
मेरी इस दिसंबर को अरे हमारे चार एग्जाम होता है ना कॉलेज में तो हमारे स्कूल को और मिल जाएगा तो कहते हैं
What are the portions? Tell me fast. According to you. Ma'am, self-repeat हो रहा है. Self-repeat हो रहा है. Again.
जो हम शेयर बस टारगेट बताता हूँ
What are the chapters? That we have? One, one to the 10.
Wait, I'll tell you. Cell, respiration in plants, economic importance of bacteria and fungi, nutrition, digestive system, and respiratory system.
Nutrition we have finished.
Yes, ma'am. Digestive
Also we have finished.
Only the respiration in plants, respiratory system, and economic importance of bacteria.
Respiration, respiratory system and respiration both are there. Plants, animals both are there, which is the exam, no?
And those are only the 6 chapters.
सेंगेरिस
Ah.
अभी ये है seeds respiration plants 5 kingdoms
Each when we study because they.
I starting special starting के लिए था नहीं मिली था उसके little section था हाँ
Cell, respiration in plant, economic importance and respiratory system. So basically, 1, 2, 3 chapters. Actually, for not going to be 3 chapters to be finished. है ना?
हमारे से 5 kingdom classification खत्म करना है respiration plants और DV हाँ वो तो control.
So 5 kingdom classification in plants is additional for you all.
Yes.
And seeds you are saying.
Seeds yes.
Seeds actually we have finished.
Yes.
Seeds we have finished here.
हाँ.
Okay. And
Skeleton is also finished here.
locomotion is also finished here.
Skeleton.
You were not there those days.
No, I was there for the first few class. For the first class, then I.
Why? What happens to you? You're always there for the introduction, and after we start the exam, why are you finishing way everything?
मैं सीट के लिए खाएंगे ना. Starting of the seat में खाएंगे. बिल्कुल नहीं. हाँ, एग्जाम चल रहे थे.
उसके पास आंसर नहीं है.
नहीं, एग्जाम चल रहे थे.
So you'll have to go through first, and of course there are some doubts, confusion. You'll have to revert. हाँ तो अभी next exam जो है January में one of the portions you have to study. What is it? Digestive system. हाँ. Portion she must have given, no? The teacher must have given you the portion. No, how come? Some part of other students they know. Your class is different.
Really?
You must not be aware. Those students they told me. I'm not aware about the portion, but they told me that they know the portion. Anyways, take a note of the portion. Accordingly, we'll go. At the last moment, you'll wake up. This is this portion to be finished. I'll just vanish away at that time. Okay. Now, so get acquainted with the portion. See that you know the chapters which are there for your exam. Talk to your friends also, and tell us ahead of time that these are the portions to be done because your exams is at the earliest. No, January. No, this will be December. Sure. So now, what do we start with? Respiration you have, respiration in plants you have, respiratory system also you have.
Respiratory नहीं, वो तो हो गया उसमें.
Actually, that part is already done. So
And
then
one
we
time
do
given classification.
for you all. But
Actually,
portion,
I'm just down as sensory chapter.
but portion they must have deleted or they took the entire chapter.
They haven't told us yet. We must
And that's good. Village in our part.
Actually, some portion may be deleted also, nothing, all the chapter or the entire chapter you cannot read. Let us start with respiration in plants first. We start with respiration in plants. respiration in plants. Let me give you one textbook. First of all, what are some of the concepts that we have to understand? What is the meaning of the word respiration? Let us start with this. What is respiration? When we are talking about the word respiration, what do we understand? What is respiration? The basic definition of respiration, first of all, has to be identified. What is the meaning of the word respiration? Respiration is actually a process of breaking down of food. Now, in case of plants, how do we talk about breakdown of the food? The plant is making its own food. But even there, the plant food is stored in the cells. The plant food has to be broken down. And always we have studied that the breakdown of the food always requires, always involves what? Release of energy. Now, if I ask you that why should the plant require energy? The plant should require energy for transport of water minerals. The plant should require energy for the process of cell division, growth of the flower, the fruit and the seed. The plant should require energy for the entire process of growth of the shoot system, the root system. So it is not that when we are talking about animals, yeah, the process of release of energy only has to take place in animals. The process of release of energy also has to take place in plants. Let us write down. First of all, what is the meaning of the word? What is the definition? Respiration. What is the definition? The biochemical process in which food is broken down with the help of oxygen. So now here we try to understand also that the food is broken down with the help of oxygen to release energy. So when we are talking about respiration, what it is? What is respiration? The biochemical process. Respiration is the biochemical process which involves the utilization of oxygen and then the breakdown of food. So here we talk about the biochemical process in which food is broken down to release energy. Food is broken down to release energy. So when we are talking about that food is broken down to release energy, let us write down the overall equation. What is the overall equation of respiration? We are saying food is broken down. So, and what is the most common form of food that we generally consider in the plant and the animal cells? It is glucose. Glucose is the most common form of food. So here we are talking about glucose getting broken down. But now that we talk about glucose getting broken down, here we are still yet to complete. I would say that the process of in which the food is broken down in the presence of oxygen. In the presence of oxygen to release energy. So now I'm saying in the presence of oxygen, but that becomes a category actually. The moment I'm writing it this way, in the presence of oxygen, I'm talking about a category. So now food is broken down in the presence of oxygen to release energy. So what is the overall chemical equation? The glucose in the presence of oxygen gets broken down to release what? To release carbon dioxide and then water and then energy. This energy that we are talking about can be in the form of heat, can be in the form of ATP. So now if I talk about that, this energy, now a little bit forward, if we are talking about now, when we are talking about the release of energy, now I said that it is carbon dioxide, water, energy. And energy can be in the form of heat, energy can be in the form of ATP. Now, basically, if I'm talking about the plants, in case of plants, more of the energy is in the form of ATP and almost negligible energy we can understand in the form of heat. But if it is an animal, the amount of energy in the form of heat is also considerable because we understand that whenever we are exhaling air, the air is warm. The exhaled air is warm, but nothing like that actually happens for a plant. When we are talking about a plant, the cells of the plants are undergoing the process of respiration. And the food is getting broken down and the release of energy. At that time, the amount of energy mostly is in the form of ATP. In case of animals, heat is pronounced. In case of plants, actually there is the amount of energy in the form of heat can be just negligible. Okay, it is just negligible. Now, come to this concept that I said is broken down in the presence of oxygen. Then that means that there's another alternative also. When we are talking about that food is getting broken down in the presence of oxygen, that means it is possible that the food can be broken down in the absence of oxygen. Yes. So based on this, as I said, the moment I write this, it becomes a category. So I'm talking about, yes, food can be broken down either in the presence or in the absence also. So based on this, I may talk about two forms. Let us now talk about the types. What are the types of respiration, the different types of respiration? Then we are talking about aerobic respiration. We talk about aerobic respiration, and we talk about, what is the other one? We talk about now anaerobic. We talk about anaerobic respiration. Let us try to differentiate now. Aerobic respiration. Vedant. इधर कभी मैं खड़ा करने वाली हूँ सच में वो क्या करता है क्लास में आके वो क्या करता है who can tell me who is the most intelligent child in this class? I want to know. वेदांत क्लास में आके 1 घंटा क्या करता है कौन बताएगा? हाँ तो बस मुस्कुराना है और बाय चांस मैंने एक टॉपिक पढ़ा दिया जो बुक में नहीं दिख रहा है उसको, तो ये बोलना है कि मैम ये बुक में नहीं है। हाथ नीचे करो, समझने की कोशिश करो। The moment I ask you a question, you should be very smartly able to answer. तब नीलेश का बुक लोगे, अब से नीलेश मारने वाला है तुमको। Now, aerobic and anaerobic respiration. What are some of the differences? Let us learn at least 2-3 differences. What is the basic difference? Aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration. The main thing is, aerobic respiration is a process in which food is broken down with the presence of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration, a process of glucose breakdown, food breakdown in the absence of oxygen. So first of all, let us write down some differences. Here I am talking about that oxygen is present or the food is getting broken down. If I write down some basic differences, if it is aerobic respiration, the process takes place. You will not write now. I will ask you certain questions, that time only you will write. Just try to understand some major differences. Aerobic respiration takes place in presence of oxygen. What about anaerobic? It takes place in the absence of oxygen. There is no need of oxygen in this process. What about aerobic respiration again? Now, since it is a process which requires oxygen, so obvious to understand that this takes place in developed organisms. This takes place in developed organisms, meaning well-formed organisms. This may take place in some organisms which are not that developed or not that advanced. Okay, so this may take place in primitive organisms. This will take place in primitive organisms. Now, when I say primitive organisms, what are you understanding? Can we understand that microbes? Microbes are primitive organisms. So again, I come to this concept that if it is aerobic respiration, the organism should have cells with large number of mitochondria. This word mitochondria should be there in their cells. But yes, if I talk about this type of anaerobic respiration, mitochondria need not be present because there is no role of oxygen only. Then what is the concept of mitochondria? The moment I'm talking about mitochondria, it is an organelle which has the capacity of utilizing oxygen. So major differences, what I said, if it is aerobic respiration, oxygen has to be utilized in the process of breakdown of food. Anaerobic, no need. What about the what type of organisms show aerobic? I gave you examples like developed organisms. Then can I say plants? Can plants be considered under the concept of aerobic respiration? Yes. All animals under the concept of aerobic respiration. But can I talk about bacteria? No. Can I talk about fungi? No. All these will come under this category. The microbes and the bacteria and the fungi, they don't have well-developed cells and they don't have mitochondria in their cells. So they are all in this particular category. What else? If I talk about aerobic respiration, what is the other concept to also remember? If it is aerobic respiration and since oxygen is used, since oxygen is there, the breakdown of glucose is complete. So we say complete oxidation. What is the meaning of complete oxidation? glucose is completely broken down. And when we say glucose is completely broken down, the components or the products are comparatively simpler. But if glucose is partially broken down, the compounds or the products will come across as not very simple. It is still quite complex, a compound that is getting formed. So now I say that if it is aerobic respiration, we would understand what is happening. Complete oxidation is happening. Complete oxidation. So these are all the concepts of aerobic respiration I'm talking about. What about this side I should write? Here I should write, here if it is a concept of anaerobic respiration, then incomplete breakdown or incomplete oxidation is happening. Now, apart from this point, something more that we try to understand that since there is complete oxidation, the amount of energy release is more. The energy release is more always. Energy release is always more, and here I should write the energy release is much lesser. So I have already written that if it is a concept of aerobic respiration, oxygen is used, and if oxygen is used, energy release will always be much more. For one molecule of glucose, the energy release will be much more. And here oxygen is not used. By certain other methods, the process of breakdown is happening. Oxygen is not used, and the energy release is much lesser. Also to justify that yes, energy release is not more, and with a small amount of energy, the microbes can manage. But I talk about the plants and the animals with small amount of energy, we cannot manage. Our energy requirement is much more. So this is some of the basic differences. Now, I had already written down the equation, the overall chemical equation for aerobic respiration. Let me now compare with anaerobic respiration. Then how do we write down the overall chemical equation for anaerobic respiration? Here, we are going to write down this is glucose. Should we write oxygen in this equation? No, because anaerobic respiration does not involve the role of oxygen at all. And this has to be broken down. But I also said if it is incomplete, now I'm going to write incomplete oxidation. Then if it is incomplete oxidation, the products form cannot be so simple like this. So the products have to be partially complex. So what is the complex forms now? This is ethyl alcohol. This is ethyl alcohol that is getting formed. And along with that, what? Along with ethyl alcohol, we talk about small amount of carbon dioxide and small amount of water at times with a little bit of energy, with small amount of energy. So I have written here energy in the form of ATP. Now, straight away, let me write down energy in the form of ATP. So here, if it is aerobic respiration, then I should write 36 molecules of ATP. Or the overall, if I have to write down, then I should write overall process. If I have to write down, then I should write 38 molecules of ATP. So difference between aerobic and anaerobic. So this is the basic thing to understand. Aerobic respiration taking place in developed organisms, oxygen is used up. These organisms always have well-developed respiratory structures. Cells have got large number of mitochondria and all these features that just now we studied, and this is the overall chemical equation. Anaerobic respiration taking place in the fungi, in the microbes, in the bacteria, etc., lower plants also. And this is the overall equation. And what do we get to see? There is no role of oxygen here. And what is the prominent product? The prominent product is known as ethanol. The main product form is ethanol. Actually, this ethanol again can be broken down. This ethanol again can be further broken down. So that's why we are saying partial breakdown. Incomplete breakdown we are talking about. No? Incomplete oxidation we are talking about. And carbon dioxide, oxygen, and carbon dioxide, water. And what is the amount of energy? See here, what a big difference, no? Here we are talking about 2 molecules of ATP only per molecule of glucose. And here we are talking about such a big amount of energy released. Now, write down these two. Take one question and write down. Take one question. Write 5 main differences between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Along with the overall chemical equation, you are supposed to know. 5 main differences between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. 5 main differences between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Now, you make a column and write down first the overall chemical equation as number 1 point, and then these points that I have written down as second, third, fourth, fifth. make a column, make a table to very clearly remember the differences between aerobic and anaerobic. Make it fast. Make it fast. First of all, make a column, make a table, aerobic and anaerobic respiration. The first point that you're going to write is the overall chemical equation. What happened? Ashita. What happened? You look so sad. No, not with your friend today. Why both of you are apart on either side of the river? Why like that? No, sir, that's easy. He's so cruel. See, I'm not that cruel like him, no?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, I'm not that cruel. Anish को मैंने क्यों तो दिखाया काम नहीं, वो जैन पे जाएगा तो देखेगा। What's your name? हाँ?
हमारे बायोलॉजी का फेवरेट है।
हमारे?
बायोलॉजी स्कूल के।
हाँ।
What's favorite?
He is biologist. अच्छा। बायो में full mark लाना चाहिए कहीं to make a proud. हाँ, no. हाँ?
बोलता है सेकंड सेमेस्टर में बोर्ड आएगा ना, मुझे पूछने नहीं ना बोर्ड में से
सेकंड क्लास थर्ड सेमेस्टर में बोला था
पूरे स्टैंडर्ड में था
मैथ्स टीचर ने
कि बायो में आना
नहीं ऑल
किसी भी टीचर के नाम से कुछ भी बोल दे।
हाँ,
टीचर ने बोल दिया था कि एक चैप्टर ही नहीं है।
हिंदू में मुझसे केमिस्ट्री टीचर
हम चीज करेंगे
मैथ्स टीचर First point, you will write the overall chemical equation. Then keep on writing down. Now, what is the second point that you should write? Mostly students would always write like this. Write one difference between aerobic and anaerobic. The first thing that they write, aerobic respiration taking place in presence of oxygen. Taking place what? What is taking place? That has to be written very nicely. The breakdown of food is taking place in presence of oxygen. The breakdown of food takes place in the absence of oxygen, that way. And keep writing down. I have just written down the key terms, you frame sentences and write. Make it fast. Now, what is the meaning of primitive organisms? Primitive meaning simple, very simple organisms which do not have large number of cell organelles, which may not also have advanced nucleus. Prokaryotes. Prokaryotes. Simple organisms. Now, all of you have written this. This done, all of you? All of you done? Now, all of you done? All of you finished? So now, when I talk about the basic concept of breakdown of glucose, let us learn the next concept. The basic concept of breakdown of glucose. We are talking about breakdown of glucose. Now let us try understanding something more. That what are some of the major steps in the entire process of glucose breakdown? Is it the same in every organism? Of course not. That already we have understood. Now, what are some of the major steps in the process of glucose breakdown? I talk about glucose, which is a 6-carbon molecule, which is a 6-carbon, everything is bleeding. So now when we are talking about, it is a 6-carbon molecule, we understand, no? Now this glucose will get broken down, this glucose gets broken down to form 2 molecules of pyruvate. So 1 molecule of glucose will get broken down to form 2 molecules of pyruvate. And these molecules of pyruvate that I'm talking about, these are 3 carbon compounds. Pyruvate or pyruvic acid is a 3 carbon compound. Glucose is a 6 carbon compound. So what are we learning? We are learning what are some of the major steps in the process of glucose breakdown. Glucose in every organism, first of all, has to get broken down to pyruvate, an intermediate product, also known as pyruvic acid. Now, what will be the fate of pyruvate will depend on what the condition of the cell is. A cell may be advanced with mitochondria. A cell may be primitive without mitochondria, and hence the fate of pyruvate. So let us now try to understand that this pyruvate will have different fates. What are some of the fates? This pyruvate, if it is present in a cell which has got abundant oxygen, a cell I'm talking about which has got abundant oxygen, then what will be the fate of this pyruvate? It will get broken down into carbon dioxide and then water and then 38 molecules of ATP. What is this process or where is this process happening? This process is basically happening in the mitochondria of all cells, mitochondria of advanced organisms. Already we had written down some features. This particular step will always happen, meaning the pyruvate getting converted to carbon dioxide and then water and then large amount of energy will get converted, will take place in the mitochondria. Now, this entire process, I said, this entire process is common in all organisms. Which step? The process of glucose getting converted to pyruvate. This is common in all steps. Let us first of all learn what is this process known as. This process is known as glycolysis. What is glycolysis? The simple process of breakdown of glucose. Glycolysis. ये जो process है, glucose getting broken down to pyruvate will take place in all organisms. Now we talk about this. I said if this is the process, then what are we going to talk about this? This is aerobic respiration. This is aerobic respiration. What can be the other fate? Sometimes it is also possible that the cell may have this, but there may be a lack of oxygen in the cell, maybe temporary. The cell may have a lack of oxygen. I'm talking about the first condition. What did I say? The first condition is what? Abundant oxygen is there. I'm talking about another condition where there is a lack of oxygen. Then what will happen to this pyruvate in that cell? This pyruvate will get broken down to lactic acid. This pyruvate will get broken down to lactic acid and very, very few molecules of energy, very few molecules of ATP. What type of organisms would generally show this? Are we talking about the advanced or the primitive type of organisms? It is taking place in advanced, but it's a temporary phase. It is a temporary phase. So now I would say that perhaps this type of processes may be taking place in the skeletal muscles in the body of mammals, in the body of well-developed organisms, for example, like us. So what is this particular process known as? What am I saying? That if a cell has pyruvate, but that cell at that time does not have an adequate amount of oxygen, there's a deficiency of oxygen will build up, then what will happen to that particular cell? The cell will start showing the breakdown of pyruvate to temporarily form lactic acid. Lactic acid is a temporary product. So think of a situation, say suppose now whenever we are under vigorous muscular activity, we are running, jogging, exercising, etc. Do we ever come across muscle cramps? Do we ever come across muscle exhaustion? Do we ever come across muscle pain? So now that happens because the muscle is running out of energy, the muscle is running out of oxygen. There's a deficiency of oxygen being built up. But if we take rest for 2, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, we again become energetic enough. No? So that is what is we are talking about this step, as where in our cell where pyruvate is there, but there is a lack of oxygen being built up for a temporary period of time, then lactic acid will be formed. But the moment oxygen is revived again, this lactic acid can again get broken down to this. The third step. So this was the second step that we talked about. The third step now that I'm talking about would be complete absence of oxygen. Now the third step that I'm talking about is the complete absence of oxygen. So what type of organisms are supposed to show this? Yeast would be there. What type of organisms are supposed to show this? Bacteria would be there. And now what would be the product? The products would be this. Already I come across ethyl alcohol or ethanol should be there. And then small amount of water, sometimes small amount of carbon dioxide, and 2 molecules of ATP should be there. What is this particular process also known as? This particular process is also known as alcoholic fermentation or just fermentation. So this particular process is also known as alcoholic fermentation. I said this particular process is always to be found in the yeast, the fungi, or the bacteria. And this process is known as alcoholic fermentation, which has also found a large importance in the field of food making, food processing, etc., and so many other different type of industrial economic importance it has. So these are the 3 different phases of this pyruvic acid. Again, what did I say? I've been talking about glycolysis as one phase of glucose breakdown. And these are the 3 different stages of pyruvate breakdown dependent on what is the condition of the cell, whether it has abundant oxygen, lack of oxygen, or deficiency of oxygen. Now, this process where it takes place in the mitochondria and aerobic respiration is happening, this can also be termed as Krebs cycle. This is also known as Krebs cycle. What is Krebs cycle? The process that takes place in developed organisms where the pyruvate is completely getting broken down to carbon dioxide, water, and 38 molecules of ATP. The process is happening in the mitochondria. So this is when you are describing, you are talking about Krebs cycle. The steps are not to be studied now for you, but just to understand what are glycolysis and Krebs cycle. What are we studying? These are the different phases of complete glucose breakdown. So I may say the complete process of glucose breakdown can be studied under 2 heads. What are the 2 heads? One is glycolysis and the other is Krebs cycle. This is majorly called aerobic developed advanced organisms. But other than that also, this is another phase, anaerobic respiration. Now for anaerobic respiration, what is so very important to understand? Alcoholic fermentation.
What is the process called? Second one.
This particular process is also known as aerobic respiration. Here is also a partial process of aerobic respiration involved. What I said, there is a deficiency of oxygen. We cannot say it is absence. Our cells at times run short of oxygen. Then this is what is getting formed. But can we say that this is anaerobic? No, there is no complete absence. No, it is just a deficiency. So oxygen is there. So this is still aerobic respiration, but since there is a deficiency of oxygen, straight away carbon dioxide and a whole lot of energy is not getting formed. First a temporary compound, then 38 molecules of it. Is this clear? I want all of you to write down this. What is the meaning of you get questions for 1 mark? Differences. What is meant by aerobic? What is meant by Krebs cycle? What is meant by glycolysis? First of all, write down the difference. Krebs cycle and glycolysis in one sentence, write down. Glycolysis, right? Glycolysis is, check the spellings. What is glycolysis? What is Krebs cycle? Right. What is glycolysis? Glycolysis is the breakdown of. Glycolysis is the breakdown of glucose. Glycolysis is the breakdown of glucose to, I'm sorry, just write this way. Glycolysis is the breakdown of 1 molecule of glucose. Just put that word, add that word. 1 molecule of glucose. Glycolysis is the breakdown of 1 molecule of glucose to 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. to 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. To 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. One glucose gets broken down to 2 molecules of pyruvic acid, also known as pyruvate. Pyruvic acid, full stop. This is a common phase of glucose breakdown. This is a common phase of glucose breakdown. This is a common phase of glucose breakdown and takes place. This is a common phase of glucose breakdown and takes place in all organisms. This is a common phase. So this phase, I'm saying repeatedly, it is a common phase of glucose breakdown and takes place in all organisms. Then you tell me, is glycolysis happening in bacteria? Yes. Is glycolysis happening in animal cells? Yes. So that's a common phase. This will happen in every organism. Next, you write Krebs cycle. The breakdown of pyruvate or pyruvic acid, any one you can write. Breakdown of pyruvic acid to carbon dioxide, water, and 38 ATP molecules. Carbon dioxide, water, and 38 ATP molecules. I'll repeat the breakdown of pyruvate to carbon dioxide, water, and 38 ATP molecules in the presence of oxygen. In the presence of oxygen, inside the mitochondria, of a cell is known as Krebs cycle. Inside the mitochondria of a cell is known as Krebs cycle. Okay, so are these two terms clear? What is Krebs cycle? What is glycolysis? Now, certain few more concepts we try understanding. If I talk about respiration, now this you are going to tell me. I'm talking about respiration. We had already learned a little bit about respiration, some few concepts about respiration. Now, can we talk about some major differences between respiration and combustion? Can you now tell me some major differences? Let us learn about 3 major differences between respiration and combustion. Come on, tell me, what should be the first difference? Respiration and burning, not combustion. Think of any type of a burning of wood, burning of paper, etc., etc. Now, number 1, what can be the first difference? Okay, let us go sequentially. If I talk about burning, if I talk about respiration, respiration is a physical or a physiological process. Physiological, no, it is. It is a physico-chemical also. Physico-chemical or physiological process. Because it is taking, what is the meaning of physico-chemical or physiological? It is taking place in living tissue, living organisms. So respiration is taking place in living organisms. What about burning? Just a physical process. It is just a physical process. Okay. Number 2, what can be the second difference? What can be the second difference? In
Now, both of them are in respiration will be less, burning will be more.
Amount of energy. Now, amount of energy that way, if I talk about the amount of energy in respiration, the heat energy is comparatively lesser in respiration. Let us finish with this. And the heat energy during burning will be much more. Okay. So let us talk about some major differences. Now, first point, what I'm saying, if I talk about burning or burning and combustion, I talk about the first difference. What is the first difference? I should understand that this takes place in living organisms. This is taking place in living organisms. Respiration taking place in living organisms. What about this? This is just a physical process. I may talk about the burning of the log of wood or the leaf or the paper, etc. Then when we are talking about respiration, this takes place at a specific body temperature of that organism, no? When I talk about respiration, the adequate amount of temperature suitable for respiration in the body of a fish and the body of a bird and the body of a mammal is the same. It will be different. But the moment I talk about burning requires a specific temperature, maybe something around 80 degrees centigrade. So at 80 degrees centigrade only, at that heat only the burning starts. But before that, it is just heating up. No. So when I talk about, just parallelly, if I'm talking about, at respiration will always take place at the body temperature of the organism. Here I should write that burning always takes place at a higher temperature, much higher temperature actually. Next is what? When we are talking about what is the outcome of respiration? What is the outcome of respiration? We understand during the process of respiration, we understand energy is released and most of the energy is in the form of ATP. Most of the energy is in the form of ATP. What about this side? Most of the energy is in the form of heat. Most of the heat and light, correct. So most of the energy would be in the form of heat and light. What else? When we are talking about combustion, when we are talking about respiration, again, when we look into respiration, does it give rise to, or what type of products does it give rise to? If you have to understand that, what type of products does respiration give rise to? Respiration would basically give rise to carbon dioxide, would give rise to water. Is it the same here? Burning basically gives rise to some inorganic compounds. As a result of burning, any type of a substance you talk about basically gives rise to inorganic compounds as ashes, no? Ashes are basically rich in inorganic compounds. So this can be some major differences always to understand between burning and combustion. There's a table, you can just go through this. Two terms now again to understand. When we talk about the process of respiration, how can we introduce this concept of anabolism and catabolism? Let us try to understand this. That living organisms show two different types of metabolic function. And just to categorize this, I talk about what are some of the metabolic functions or what is metabolism. And with reference to metabolism, I may talk about there is something known as anabolism or anabolic reactions. Anabolism or anabolic reactions. Then what is the meaning of anabolic reactions? Anabolic reactions would be formation of some complex compound from some simpler ones. Anabolic reaction. Do you remember of anything? Anabolic reaction, formation of complex compounds from simpler forms. Okay, let us write one. I will talk about carbon dioxide and water resulting in the formation of glucose. Which process I'm talking about? Photosynthesis. So, ye jo hua, these are simple compounds resulting in the formation of a complex compound. This is anabolic reaction. Now let us talk about the next, catabolism or catabolic reactions. Catabolism or catabolic reactions. Now you tell me, what should I write? Already we are studying this right now. The breakdown of the glucose to give rise to carbon dioxide and water. What is the meaning of catabolism? Breakdown of complex compounds to give rise to simpler forms, simpler compounds. So again, now I write the other way. Glucose getting broken down. Okay, let us try to give a big respiration only. Glucose getting broken down in the presence of oxygen to give rise to carbon dioxide and then water and then energy. So are we not talking about the reverse of this? We are talking about reverse of this, no? So here we are saying formation of some compounds and here we are saying breakdown of some compounds. So formation of any type of a compound, what type of reactions are these? Anabolic. Breakdown of any type of reactions. What type of reactions are this? Catabolic. Okay. So the moment you talk about metabolism, say suppose now I talk about metabolism of carbohydrate. What are you supposed to understand? What is meant by metabolism of carbohydrate? Breakdown of glucose also, or breakdown of carbohydrate to form glucose, and association of glucose to form disaccharides. Remember disaccharides? Glucose will club up together to form disaccharides. Disaccharides will club up together to form polysaccharides. No, polysaccharides will club up together to form starches. So what is happening? One way we are talking about simple things becoming complex. This is anabolism. Complex becoming simple by breakdown. That is catabolism. So any type of metabolism you think of will always involve both the phases. We'll continue with the chapter next class. Bhakti and Ashika. I don't want you to be bad like this. In my lecture, you can sit together, but don't actually. Go around in the center of the university. Sit together.
इसका देख के बोल देता बहुत क्वालिटी है। अरे इसके तो दांत मार भी नहीं थे। इसके दांत मुझे क्या देखा क्या? दांत ये देखा ना। अबे भाई बस आगे ना इसमें। तो ये बना के मैं ऊपर में ना एक साल। लेकिन एक तार वाला एक्सीडेंट हाँ उसे ज्यादा निकाल जब मैं बना मेरा